Hey everybody, welcome back, and we are continuing. So we started off with screen 1. I've added a second screen where I've literally copied everything from screen 1 to screen 2, okay? Now, I did do something different immediately besides copy this over. So in addition to copying everything over, I want you to notice for screen 2, I set the property onVisible to this. I've added a collection when this thing loads up, okay? And this is called the Cole messages. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this array of messages. Okay, so this is a table of messages, and there's a very specific structure. We have two columns in this table. It's role and content. So content is what's being said or what's being asked or what's being answered. And the role is basically who's doing it. So we always, one time and only one time, will have a system message. The system message is what kicks everything off. It tells the AI who it is, what its purpose in life is, or what its core instruction or goal is. In this case, you can see it says answer, always answer in rhymes. Okay, so it's a prime directive of what the AI is supposed to do. So now everything that it does, hopefully, it will always answer in a rhyme. Okay, and then we have the user participating this. Now the response, which we haven't logged here, but if we were to log it, I'm going to quickly go ahead and create this role. And instead of the role being user, it's going to be assistant. Okay, and so then this would be not introduce yourself. It would be, hi, I am David, or something like that, right? That's if I was answering it, okay? So from here on out, I want you to consider this. Again, I told you there's only one system parameter or row in here which sets the tone and the tempo, the prime directive for the AI. And then this right here is the user and the AI. Think of the user as the question and the assistant as the response. And that together is considered a turn, question, response, question, response. So you're going to have lots of these build up over time where you're going to have question, response, question, response. And that's how ChatGPT is. You ask a question, you get a response. But the thing about it is everything in this messages object or this messages array is the chat history, and you're passing it back in to the AI. So it has context, it has memory about what you've said before. And this is how it works in ChatGPT too. So this is how you're going to build this chat experience because A, we can pop this out to a gallery and kind of see what's going on. And in addition to the gallery, we will also be able to pass into the AI the history of the conversation as context. So I'm going to get rid of this gobbledygook, or all of this gobbledygook, because I've really made a mess out of this. And I don't want to screw up what I have. All right, so I'm just going to actually probably just cancel, don't save, go away, and we'll open up chat to make sure that we get whatever. Let's make sure it still works. And it does, so life's good. All right, so this is what we're trying to accomplish here with the messages object. All right, let's go back to Power Apps and let's go see what we've done. So here's the thing. When I'm going to onVisible for screen 2, meaning when the screen first starts up, I want to start the conversation as a blank conversation. I do not want it to know anything of anything other than its prime directive and its mission. So in preparation, I've created Cole messages here. And so what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to change a few things around. So I'm going to drop this button way down here because I'm going to go back and forth into a lot of different things. So let's make this a little bit simpler. Let's come up here and let's do something first, because what we need to do for this message is, see, right now it's all static with one dynamic. But the problem is I don't want to do this like this. I just want to pass in the initial conversation or the history of the conversation, because I'm going to always hit this chat button and I might want to have a different question, a different response, a different question, a different response. So let's take this in baby steps. So let's do what are we going to do here? We're going to do a collect We're not a clear collecting, we're doing a collect. And we're going to do it on call messages. And what do I want to pass into the call messages? Well, I want to pass in this object right here, which is the user object. So I'm going to copy this out. I'm going to paste this in here like this. I'm going to paste that like that. And so inside of here, now this is where things get ugly. And it gets tricky. And this is why it's ugly. Because PowerFX, when you're dealing with collections, because right now it looks like JSON, and this is JSON that I passed in. But PowerFX uses a JSON-like. And it's so close to JSON, this is why you get screwed up. So the key and the values in JSON have to be wrapped in quotes, double quotes rather. But with the PowerFX, when you're dealing with collections, the key is always unquoted. And this is the key, content is unquoted. And so the value has to be in quotes. And I'm missing a semicolon back here. So now all of this here is valid. But the problem is, introduce yourself is not dynamic. So in order to make this dynamic, I'm going to get rid of this. And this is, what is this? This is txt input 1_1. So to make it dynamic, we'll do txt input 1.1.text. Okay. So this should then, when I push the button, it should take the initialized collection, which should have only one row. And if we come over here to variables and we look at collections, I have one row in this table. And that's the system setting the prime directive. But before, when I click the button, I need to make sure that I have another row into the collection. And that is whatever the question is as the user, I'm typing into the box. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm not patching, but I'm adding another row to the database or to the collection in memory, this user. So that when I pass this down here along, it's going to pass into collection. So at this point, I've now have the collection fully done. So I'm going to do something else called set v payload. Easier to think than it is to type. And so what is this going to be? Well, what I want to do is I want to pass in my array or table. The problem is that a collection is a table, but I don't need a table. If I try to pass in a table as JSON, it's going to complain at me. So I need to use the JSON function. And what I need to do is convert this table into JSON so that I can use this later downstream. So if I do this like that, now the two rows in my database, because I have two rows right now, I have these two rows sitting there, and I need to convert this before I do the next set, which goes to the AI, right? And so now what I need to do is, notice that this is an array. I'm going to get rid of the square brackets. And here I'm going to do the vpayload. But I'm not getting IntelliSense. And this tells me because I'm inside of a string. So I need to break out of the string. I need to use my concatenations inside of the string. And now I can use my vpayload inside of this. And this vpayload is already a properly formatted JSON, JSONified, to make up a word, variation of my table. So all I'm doing is I'm essentially, to use more plain English, if you're not a programmer, is to take the Power Apps table that I put in memory, I converted it, and then I'm just simply using this converted table so that I can use it with my API, because it has to be in JSON. And that's what this JSON does. If I remove this code and do the opening thing for JSON, like sometimes IntelliSense, it's giving it, but unfortunately I'm getting a multi-layered thing. What I want is this helper text behind the screens. And here we go. Here's JSON. I want you to read this. The data structure The data structure essentially means a table, to be converted to JSON. And then it says tables, records, primitive values are supported, arbitrarily nested. Generates JSON string text for a table record. And the plain English of that is that it converts a table into JSON, okay? And so that's why I did what I did here, and I screwed up my code right there. All right, so now that I've got this converted and we're using this payload, I now have a way of dynamically capturing and asking questions of kind of what's going on here. And I don't know why I'm getting an error down here. Something is amok. And there's the chat. And this is here. What is this? Unexpected characters, the formula, parent close is expected. Is it needing another one? Somehow I forgot, or somehow I screwed up somewhere. Set payload. Oh, I see. I forgot it up here. Yep, I got, this is the open close for the JSON. I didn't close it for set. Okay, so anyway, that's taken care of there. Now I have one more version of this. I'm going to copy this out, and now I'm going to come down to the bottom. You may be saying, David, what the hell are you doing? Well, we've got the initialization on the page load, okay? So remember on screen 2, the on visible. Let's go over here again so we can walk through this. Otherwise, we don't take the baby steps. You might get a little bit spun around. So on screen 2, on visible, we're clear collecting. In other words, we're resetting the table. And all we want is the system message. Again, the prime directive, okay? So now in the button, what I've done is we already have the prime directive, one row in the table. We're adding a second row, and this is the user's question. See, role user. Now what we need to do here at the final one is we need to change this to assistant. Okay, the assistant is the response from the AI. Remember back earlier when I told you that you're going to have a bunch of user and assistant, and you're going to have a bunch of turns? Well, this is where we're now writing the AI's response back into the collection. So now we're going to have a fully completed conversation. But now I need to make this more dynamic. So if I take the code that we used here, not for the on select, but for the text, where's text? Okay, here is this right here. And if I come down here to the button and we go to the last one where this is, instead of text input 1 equals text, because we're not using the user's question, we want the AI's response. Okay, so we're getting the in the AI response, and we've already come out of this, so we got the response. We've set vResponse. So what we're doing is the same thing. Instead of displaying it, we're just using it as a value and writing it into the table. And so it's the same content. We've covered this earlier, so this is nothing new. But there are a couple things. So this is like, you know, if we were to use good practice and we start, you know, making comments, this is the code that user message, and then this is converting the table of conversation. Whoops, it might help if I comment it. Converting the table of conversation to proper for the API. And then here we're just simply making the API call. And then down here we're we're collecting the AI response to the user's message. All right, so now we've got proper, you know, documentation in line. So with any luck, we should be able to have a user experience of, well, let's make sure we reset. So one of the things I'm going to do is let's look at the collection. We've got one row. View the table. All right, so we're good to go. Let's play this. And a couple of things I just thought about that's going to be a problem. So, well, let's just go with it. For right now, let's do who's the president in Brazil? I didn't spell that right. Anyway, AI is smart enough to know my bad spelling. Okay, in Brazil, the current president's name is Luiz. I'm not even going to try to pronounce all of it. Okay, so the point is we've got a turn. And let's do another question. Tell me a joke. Okay, a man walked into a library, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we have a couple of turns. We should have, let's see, 5 rows. We do 5 rows in our table. And now we have the conversation. This is the prime directive. It's the system. And now here's our first turn, user. Who's the president in Brazil? The assistant. And then here's the answer. So these 2 is the first turn. This is the second turn. Okay, so now let's do this. Let's bring this over, tighten this up a little bit. Let's insert a gallery. And where's the gallery? Gallery, input, layout, vertical gallery. Let's use this. And because this is already Power Apps friendly, let's not use this. Let's use title and subtitle. And for the data source, we can simply use the collection, call messages. And for the fields, we can see that who said it and then what was being said. Okay, so we now have the chat history over here. Now, a couple things that we're going to want to do is I want to clear this field, this text input 1. So down here on the reset button, I'm going to do a couple of things. We're going to reset txt1.1 so that every time we hit this, we don't have to deal with it, right? So let's then play this and see what happens. A bad story. Let's make this really long, right? So we'll do this. It's running through. It's grabbed everything out. It's got text input 1, which is the default text for that control. And if we look at, here's the default over here. Let's get rid of it. I don't know, I hit something bad. Yep, there we go. So now it shouldn't say that anymore. So it's reset. And now we've got our chat conversational history. Tell me a bad story. The clouds were gray. And here's the full iteration of that. So the point is now we can click on this and we can do extra things, go to a different screen. But we have the makings of a very simple, basic, elementary chat experience that we're now doing, and we're running all of this through the Power App control. So hopefully you learned a lot on how to deal with this type of thing, how to store out everything as messages, and you can get as crazy. I've given you enough information here and enough examples here to be able to go off and do something really cool. In the next video, we're going to take these same connectors, these same 2 connectors, and we're going to use and see how we might use this in Power Automate. All right, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.